What's going on YouTube? Ryan and Alex back from Dopamon again, and today we are looking back and redrafting the first 15 picks in one of the deepest drafts in NHL history, 2003.
And we're not doing 15 together. We're doing 15 separately. I got 15. Ryan's got 15. They're going to be different. We're going to talk about it. We're going to argue. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Let us know down in the comments what you think the draft should be, who should be taken first overall, what you think of our picks, and leave a like and subscribe down for more.
All right, mine's like a big deal. You should do yours first.
Okay.
Mine's going to piss you off.
Oh no. All right, at number 15, I have the New York Islanders originally selected Robert Nielsen. I have them selecting Ryan Kessler. Ryan Kessler, I loved as a player. He isn't playing anymore. He's hurt himself. He played the kind of game that isn't built for longevity in the NHL. But 1,001 games played, 258 goals, 315 assists for 573 points at one of the best two-way forwards at his time at his peak. I think Ryan Kessler is an easy number 15 here, and this shows you how deep this draft is. I'm doing other drafts and like it's players who have like been in the show for a little bit, a couple hundred points maybe, but Ryan Kessler is a really solid 15. This draft is deep.
Uh, my 15? Tobias Enstrom.
Toby
Think he's
Enstrom.
Toby Enstrom. Yeah, I think he kind of exemplifies like the puck moving defenseman. I think he was before his time. When I watch him play now, he's got a lot of speed through the neutral zone. He's breaking up plays on the rush, and when I see him play with a Dustin Buffalogen, he's the defensive guy. Buff's the guy who's pinching hard all the offense, and Toby Enstrom's a solid defenseman, defensive defenseman, and as well. And I think that goes understated. And his career kind of got a little bit ended short because he got slowed down due to injury. But if he hadn't, I think he'd be a solid player still. And I think he's kind of underrated.
I don't think he started out right away too, right? Like he think he took a couple years
Three
to
or
get
four
in
years.
to the
Yeah,
NHL. So
yeah.
maybe
And
if
then
he had
came
come
in
in as a
really.
rookie, he would have had a
Mhm.
couple more game seasons to his
Yeah, a
belt.
little
But
bit more games, a little bit more points, and a little bit longer, more recognized career. But other than that, I think it was solid. He had a
wow,
great career for
I'm
for
looking at my
15
top
years.
15, and I don't know who I would bump out for Toby Enstrom. That's
Yeah, and it was I don't know who that's
oh
Kessler was
no.
high on mine. He was a teen as well, Kessler for me, so it's a tough 15. It's a lot of talent here.
All right, who do you got at 14?
Oh, right, I guess I can go.
We'll go back and forth.
Thomas Vanek.
Thomas Vanek.
Thomas
That's
Vanek.
another player that I don't have on my top 15.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah.
I'm glad this is different. I think he's a great goal scorer, especially in his early years, and I think that really fit the kind of style that uh like Chicago had been drafting at the time. Yeah, I think he would have been great. I think, like if they had planned the future, imagine having Vanek with Kane and Taves, like that'd be so crazy, like as a future. I think he would have been a great choice. It didn't, in his 30s, was still active, still scoring, wasn't like a top pairing guy, but I like him at 14.
Yeah. My thing with Thomas Vanek is I remember him a little bit as more of a one-dimensional guy. He did score, but to me there's so many more better like
Mm-hmm.
complete players in this draft to draft
Fair.
instead of Thomas Vanek. Was selected fifth overall that year, so he was actually a pretty high pick in 2003, and had a pretty decent career. Had over a
Maybe he had a
thousand
good one
games.
dimension, right?
Yeah, really good one to mention. Played over 1,000 games, 789 points, 373 goals. That's not bad.
Yeah, right.
At 14, Chicago's pick, I have them retaining Brent Seabrook, multiple Stanley Cup champion, incredible part of that dynasty Chicago Blackhawks team in the mid 2010s. Uh, I can't speak higher of Brent Seabrook, and a truly amazing defenseman in the NHL. And I wish I would have picked him higher, but this draft is so deep that he does a drop down from 14 to me. Moving on, number 13 for me, the LA Kings originally selected Dustin Brown here in this spot. I thought about Dustin Brown for my top 15, but instead
Same.
I have them picking Jeff Carter here. Yeah, Jeff Carter, obviously picked for 11th overall for the Philadelphia Flyers. Was LA King this season, so it's kind of funny that in my mock draft he gets picked by the LA Kings. Obviously, he was moved to Pittsburgh at the trade deadline. But 1,000 games, 751 points, 390 of them goals. More of a goal scorer. Kind of like Vanek, I guess. A little bit more one-dimensional in that fact, but had a lot of big goal scoring seasons. And his peak, I think, puts him ahead of a guy like Ryan Kessler, a guy like Thomas Vanek. Jeff Carter had a more dominant peak than guys like Thomas Vanek and such. So I went with Jeff Carter at 13.
I really like Jeff Carter. I have him in my top 15. Spoiler alert.
Nice. Who do you have at
My turn?
13, Alex?
Corey Crawford. Elite starting goaltender, he's got rings. It's hard to not consider him. LA was they needed a goaltender, They eventually picked Jonathan Quick. I think this pick would, make them reconsider that one. He's a starting goaltender for a really long time. It's hard to rank goalies in the draft, and I think that seeing goalies now and how their careers kind of panned out, it's almost like easier to take them in the first round than it would be like actually drafting them, because it's really easy to miss on a goalie.
Yeah, really, really tough to take a goalie in the first round, as we've
Mhm.
seen. And Corey Crawford's numbers are huge, man. The 918
Mhm.
save percentage throughout his career, 245 goals against average. That's a good pickup.
Yeah, it's easy to look back on a goalie and be like, yeah, that guy. It's really easy to do that. My number 12, Dustin Buffalogen, or Bufflin,
Bufflin, yeah.
Bufflin, however you like to pronounce it.
Dustin Buffalon. Dustin Buffalon.
I've heard it in the Swedish way pronounced differently. I've heard Americans pronounce it differently. However, he likes to pronounce it. Doesn't matter. I think he would have been picked 12th overall by New York. I think he's a huge physical dominant force. That was picked in the 5th round with Enstrom, 2 5th-round defensemen who actually ended up playing together. I have in the top 15. I think he was a huge dominant force. There's a reason why they put him on the wing. He's just so big and strong, especially in the corners. And he's been Chicago picked him up for a reason. He's such a big, just part of their like Stanley Cup run and shit. I think, right? He's got a
Yeah,
Stanley
he
Cup,
won one
right?
cup.
Yeah, yeah. And I've always liked his game. I've always really liked him, and that's where I pick him.
Yeah, and the Rangers will take that because originally selected Hugh Jesseman at
Mm-hmm.
number 12, who I guess is one of the probably the biggest flop in this draft. Uh, in such a deep draft, everyone in the first round it seemed played like 200 games, 300 games, and Hugh Jesseman grand total of 2 in the NHL, and the Rangers would take that any day. Dustin Buffalon for sure would be a much improved pick at that spot. And I'll jump in now and say I also have Dustin Buffalon at 12.
Oh.
Um, so it's our first one we've had the same.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, everything you said, man. Dustin Buffalon was just a force. Just a
Yeah,
force
it's
on
a
D.
force.
And it was a D kind of unlike any other D in his class. It was so big. He was like a linebacker out there.
He's
His
quarterback.
his hit reels are insane. I don't know. I think I called him a few years ago. I called him kind of like a modern day Scott Stevens type player, where they're so rare, they're so unicorns that like the offensive potential and the big hits and like all this stuff, right? And Dustin Buffalon was incredible career for him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my 11th pick, Philadelphia Flyers select Corey Crawford. Corey Crawford, in the same around range as you. You picked him a couple picks later. I think Crawford, a goaltender, is so important to winning, and he showed that obviously in his time with Chicago, winning all those championships and going deep playoff runs. And he was an underrated goalie when he was playing full seasons with Chicago. He had some really crazy numbers a few years, and obviously injuries slowed him down, or else he'd probably still be playing
Yeah, some
for a
concussion
few more
issues. Oh,
years. Anyway, he'd probably still be playing for a few more years, kind of like Marc-Andre Fleury is now, still kind of going strong. And yeah, the concussion issues slowed him down, but Philly, who's I didn't really do this so much. I didn't try to like match the team per the player or like what their needs were. But Philadelphia needs a goalie, and they've needed a goalie forever. I don't think they would have passed on Corey Crawford if they had known that that's what he would have done.
I like that pick. Yeah, it's hard to pass up on Crawford. Me?
Yep,
My 11th? Jeff Carter. Easy pick.
Yep, they
This
got
is
it
right there.
They got it right the first time.
Yeah. Yep, there's no complaints. Well, it's there to say bad about him. He was an amazing goal scorer. He's still, like a second line center, in LA or something. Like he's still killing it, still doing everything right, and he's brought elements of his game to make sure that in his late 30s he's still competitive, even on a team like LA that wasn't competitive. He's a guy that's always bringing it, and it's like you don't trade that. You want to help. You want him to be around with it when the kids come up. I think he's a really good example, for in LA right now, and I can't see why Philadelphia wouldn't pick him at 11.
Yeah, he was traded
That's why they did it.
to Pittsburgh at the deadline, but yeah, in LA, was that third line center power play specialist kind of player. No, great. I've already said my piece on Jeff Carter. Great pick here. Great pick
Yeah,
at 11.
yeah. Who was originally drafted at 10?
Andre Kostitsyn from Montreal.
Not a bad pick, but I have someone better.
Oh yeah,
Zach Parise.
Zach
I think
Parise.
he's
I'm gonna
yeah.
jump in and say I also have Zach Parise going here.
No way. I'm glad we at least have a few that are the same. I think he's an incredibly underrated two-way forward. And like the fact that he's been able to also score, early in his career at that level is insane. And he's still bringing it today. He's still like making, a kind of middling, crappy team, a competitive team. And I've always really liked his game, and I think that Montreal should have taken him at a 10.
Yeah, I think Zach Parise gets a
Spoiler.
bad rap. Zach Parise gets a bad rap based on his contract.
That contract.
Obviously, the huge contract he signed a few years ago from Minnesota back in 2012, I think it was, coming out of New Jersey. But in New Jersey, in those few years, half decade, in Minnesota, he's one of the best goal scorers in the league. He's a 30-goal guy almost every year, and even late in his career, he's scored 25 and 28. Back to back, the 2 years before this one. Obviously, the last two have been shortened, but in 2018-19, he scored 28 goals, and 2019-20, he scored 25. He's still doing it, and he could still do it for a few more years. Maybe we can revisit this when everyone is retired. Maybe it'll change, but Zach Parise is still going strong. Number 9th pick originally, Dion Phaneuf for the Calgary Flames. Good career, Dion. I don't have Dion being picked here. I have Joe Pavelski being picked here. And this is Joe Pavelski is an incredible player, and I think he would go top 3 if he was in any other year in the 2000s. This draft is so stacked. In his career, over 1,000 games, 829 points, 384 goals, and he is still killing it with Dallas, having a huge year for them. Calgary getting Joe here would be insane. Looking back on where they were in the 2000s with Iggy.
Right. Oh my God.
Having Pavelski and Iggy on one line would work really, really well, I think. But went to San Jose. He was actually, him and Buffalon are actually the biggest jumpers in these mock draft. Buffalon was picked back when they had an 8th round, 245th overall, and Joe Pavelski picked in the 7th round by San Jose, 205th. Jumps all the way to 9th overall here. Big player.
My number 9?
Yep.
Brent Burns.
Brent Burns.
Yeah, Brent Burns. I think that Brent Burns, I sometimes question his defensive game. There's a reason why he was, put on a forward, as a winger for a while. But I think that there's just an edge, much like Dustin Buffalon, like his game. He's just a force. He's scoring goals, he's throwing hits, he's skating hard, and eating Kit Kats through the hole in his mouth. It's just great. I can't. It's nothing, and like I think there's a good reason why Calgary took Dion at this time, at at ninth. And like if they had gotten Burns, like that could have been an incredible force on D2, and I think he would have fit, with the team. And like you said, in that playoff run, that would have been amazing. The mid 2000s with for Calgary, they were an incredible team, and he would have been, if you think, if you think Dion scored a lot of goals in his rookie season, imagine what Burns would have scored in his rookie season with Calgary.
Yeah. Well, Burns actually started as the forward, right? So
he
if
started
he
as
started
the forward,
as a defenseman and they fixed that right away, maybe as a a little bit crazier point totals, because he actually has had bigger point totals as a defenseman in his career than a forward,
which is incredible,
which is crazy. Yeah, but big pick here by Calgary for sure. All right, the number 8 pick is owned by Atlanta, Alex.
And who did they originally pick, Ryan?
Originally had Braden Coburn, Ottawa Senators legend. Braden Coburn. He's had a really good career. Always played 1,000 games.
Yeah.
More of a defensive guy, obviously.
I have him in my 15 to 30.
Yeah, I think if we were to go further, I would have him in that range too.
All right, my number 8, Shea Weber.
Shea Weber.
Yeah, Shea Weber. I think Shea Weber is one of the the best defensemen to play. He's got he's got the hardest shot. He might be one of the strongest people on the ice. He's an incredible defenseman. He's had a crazy career both offensively and defensively. He's each end of the ice he's been a terror. You don't want to ask Brady Tkachuk recently fought him. You don't want to fight him. his duck and cover and hide is he's scary to play against. And that's what goalies think when he shoots the puck too. It's like just hold on for dear life. Like the thing's coming at you, and when he's on the ice, you think about when like McDavid's on the ice, when Crosby's on the ice, you got to worry about these offensive threats. When Shea Weber's on the ice, you can still got to worry, and then he's just a defenseman, and I think that shows a lot. That's why I have him number 8. And for an Atlanta Thrashers team, yeah.
Oh yeah, they would have needed a guy like Shea Weber at the time.
Yeah.
I have a player here. I'm curious if you have him picked a lot higher, because I think you really like this player. I have him at 8. I have Corey Perry here. Corey Perry, 50 goals obviously in his career. Peaked.
The only 50 goal scorer in this draft, right?
Is he? Oh yeah, he might be.
The only 50 goal scorer in this draft, Corey Perry.
Yep. More than 1,000 games, 813 points, 386 of them goals. Originally selected 28th in the first round. Corey Perry is a prick to play against. He's the kind of player you want on your team and you don't want to see on the others. Like I said, this is an incredibly deep draft, and Corey Perry being 8th here might look crazy, but there's some guys ahead of him, in this top 10 that are, well worthy of being here, and that's why I want everyone here to watch this video to comment below who you think should be, taken big, top 5 in this draft. Give us that, and I'm curious what you guys think as well. Because I had a really hard time not picking Corey Perry this whole time, and he slipped all the way to 8th for me.
And who was originally selected?
Number 7 for Nashville. The defensive mecca of Nashville just churns out defensemen like crazy. Originally selected Ryan Suter. And I have them sticking to their guns and selecting Ryan Suter here with the 7th pick. Ryan Suter, again, is like Zach Pavelski, gets a lot of flack for his big contract. he's been legitimately one of the best defensemen in the NHL for the last 15 years. He's
Yeah.
so good on defensive end, and he puts up 40-point seasons like it's clockwork. And he's just so solid. And I think there's a slew of defensemen here for me in a little bit. Ryan Suter is definitely in this mix, though. I had a hard time picking which one is gonna be where. You had Brent Burns a while ago. I still haven't picked him yet.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. But Ryan Suter, great pick here for Nashville.
I like that pick. My number 7, Corey Perry.
Corey Perry. All right.
Yeah, Corey Perry. I was having a hard time watching him drop this low too. He's the only 50 goal scorer in this draft. He's done some incredible things. I remember watching him. I remember the All-Star game. He stole that All-Star game. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
No, I don't.
I wish I remember. I should have looked that up, but like, yeah, he's just danced. He won the skills competition like blindfolded. It was beautiful. When he was like the guy, he was like the goal scorer. You know, he was the hardest person to play against. He was scoring. He had the 50 goals. Like, there's nobody in his draft class that was a more effective goal scorer and a pain in your ass than Corey Perry, and that's why I have him number 7. I can't even believe he dropped out of the top 5. Hard time dropping him out of the top 3. I do really like him. You're right. So, but I had to restrain myself and be honest and keep him at number 7 for Nashville.
Number 6. Getting closer and closer to the top. San Jose's pick originally selected another Ottawa Senators legend, Milan Michalek. Who do you got them taking here at 6? I have to doubt it's Milan Michalek.
No. Joe Pavelski.
Joe Pavelski. Yeah.
Joe Pavelski. I love Joe Pavelski, and I think he brings a leadership role that goes like, I mean, it does go stated, it's on his chest, but like, he was the captain, but like he brings that even in Dallas when he almost doesn't have to. He's having a great season. He's old, and like he's still bringing it, and he's got so much skill both ends of the ice, and I see San Jose really wanting him for some reason. I think if they could look back, if everybody's looking back, San Jose's sitting there sweating, being like, "That's our captain. We're taking him as soon as we can." Like that's.
Yeah, jumps from 205th or whatever up all the way to all the way up here and gets picked by the same team. Wonderful.
Yep. Yeah. That's what I have. That's my pick.
I have a similar vein. Speaking of the San Jose Sharks wanting to pick, peak San Jose Sharks, I got them picking Brent Burns here. I have Burns just ahead of Ryan Suter just based on his offensive output. He's still, he's a little older now, but in his prime was still a decent defensive mind. Not obviously wasn't going to win any defensive defenseman awards, but Brent Burns.
There is one.
Not that there is one. There should be, but there is one. So I have a defensive forward. Why don't they have a defensive defenseman? Anyway, Brent Burns, like you said, started off as a forward, but peaked in. Did I just blow your mind with that?
Yeah, sorry.
Peaked
really good.
Peaked with the defenseman. Peaked as a defenseman. Brent Burns, I have just ahead of Ryan Suter. But again, there's so little gap between these guys. Probably from Joe Pavelski for me up, all the way even to number 1. There's so little gap here. Number 5 for me. Top 5 now. Buffalo's pick originally selected Thomas Vanek. They will not be selecting Thomas Vanek here for me. I have them in my conclusion of my defensive takeover here. Shea Weber. Shea Weber is the best defenseman in this draft for me. So dominant. Like everything you said, he's physical presence, booming slap shot. So scary to play against. I couldn't imagine playing against Shea Weber. And
I do. I call them nightmares.
Yeah. It couldn't be a good time. And Buffalo picking him here would be huge in a city who needed defensemen at the time. Had some offensive firepower, but not a lot of big defensemen on their team that I can remember. Correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, just the
You're not
overall
wrong.
best
Yep.
defensive player in the draft. Brent Burns on the more of the offensive side, Ryan Suter on more of the defensive side. Shea Weber perfectly right in the middle for me. Beats them both out at number 5.
I like your 5th pick. Me, number 5, I have Ryan Getzlaff.
Ryan Getzlaff
Ryan
at
Getzlaff
5.
at 5. This was really hard for me.
Oh,
I really
my
like Ryan
goodness.
Getzlaff. And like I think for Buffalo, this would be a beautiful pick because
Oh, yeah.
they still don't have a great number 1 center who's a great captain material. Not gonna mention any names. And it's part of the reason why I don't have him like at number 4 or 3 or 2 or 1 is goal scoring. It's just like I think is really shown in like the second half of his career that like the goal scoring just isn't there. He's an incredible leader, great assists. He's good at both ends of the ice, but he's not as complete as some of the guys that have a little bit higher than him. And in a redraft scenario, like I just the guys I have above him, I think it's tough call, but it's really hard to knock on Ryan Getzlaff too, who's been an incredible captain for his entire career, almost his entire career. He's been one team killing it, great attitude,
Yeah.
great person you want to model your team around, and it's tough seeing him drop to 5.
Yeah, I'm really surprised you haven't picked this low.
Hmm.
Getzlaff for me is, the goal scoring isn't what he's
Hmm.
about. He has 700
Yeah,
assists in
I
his
know.
career. He'll fight you. He'll, get in the corners. He's, the heart and soul of that team, and he has been for a long time. That's interesting.
Hmm. And I think there's also he's gone through a few droughts that haven't looked good in it, as well. And it's just there's something being like, I like the way that Pavelski's aged or something, And if I can look back, I know that like I picked, at 15 Enstrom, he had a hot earlier career, but I can only it's hard trying to find that balance of looking back at a guy's career and being like, what do you want out of it? And it's just that's just what I feel. I have Ryan Sutter.
Ryan Suter, yeah.
Yeah, Suter? I'm sorry, whatever. Ryan Suter. I like him for all the reasons you like him, but I really like his defensive game. He's a defense first kind of guy, builds from that, and you can't lose if you don't get scored on, and it's where the puck starts from. You gotta break out the puck. You can do all the right things in your defensive zone. That gives you all the offense, and that's how you win games, in my opinion. That's how like I like to play. That's what I see in his game. That's why I think he's been so effective so late in his career. It's hard to find defensemen that like are so good, well-rounded this late in their career. Some of them rely heavily on being strong or being offensive. Like you could get a guy like Burns who can just like power the puck to the net, or Keith Yandel, he's so strong offensively, but his defensive game has these holes. But Ryan Suter has just been killing it. Hasn't missed a beat. He's still doing his thing defensively. He's winning the battles, keeping the team competitive when I don't think it should be. He's a star on the team, and yeah, I think the contract that he signed to definitely makes him look less like an attractive pick, but when you get to look back and redraft like we can look back and sign contracts like so
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
there's a little bit of a little bit of leeway there, and it's I like that you have the Shea Weber in like the same kind of like, Brent Burns all in this like defensive mix here in the 4 to 10 range. I like that. I like that we kind of see similar things but value different things, which makes us interesting.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I was thinking
Hmm.
about Ryan Suter for a little
Hmm.
bit in the top 5. And you mentioned his defensive play. He's no slouch on the offensive either. He has over
Yeah,
600
fair. Yeah,
points
yeah.
in
That's
his
yeah.
career as a most of them assists. I think he has less than 100 goals, but he has 600 points in the NHL as like a power play guy too. Um, just an all around guy, and he'll play half an hour a game. He's insane. My number 4. You'll like this. It's Marc-Andre Fleury.
Nice.
Marc-Andre Fleury was the first pick in this draft, in one of the deepest drafts, and he does not slide very far as a goalie. I think recently he move ahead of Cujo, or did he move ahead of Belfour? He moved ahead of one of them.
Belfour.
Moved ahead of Belfour on the all-time wins list as goalies. He's only behind Luongo, Juan Brodeur. Marc-Andre Fleury, incredible career, and it's not over yet. He's still going strong. He still isn't, he might get nominated for a Vezina this year. He's got that crazy numbers, and had a little bit of problem there in like the mid 2010s with Pittsburgh, and that's why he kind of dropped off a little bit from 1 to 4 for me. I considered him taking him at 1 again, just because goalies are so invaluable. But when Matt Murray came in and Fleury kind of lost the net to him, and then kind of found himself again in Vegas, slips for me to number 4. But absolutely incredible. I love Marc-Andre Fleury. He's one of my favorite players in the NHL. And Columbus needed a goalie.
Oh yeah, they did.
Really needed a goalie. They will eventually have picked Steve Mason in, I think, 2006, 2007, a couple years from this point, 2003, who won a Rookie of the Year, but nothing else. Marc-Andre Fleury would have mitigated that need for sure.
All right, into the top 3.
Yep. Top 3 big picks here. Originally, Florida's pick, Nathan Horton. Nathan Horton was a really good player, got knocked out by injuries. I like Nathan Horton.
I love Nathan Horton. I have him in my teens. I ranked a little past 30. I have him in my teens. It's tough to keep him I really want to put him in the top 15. Looking at his stats and his career, obviously the injury is a thing, but he's such a good pick.
Yep. I don't have Florida taking Horton, obviously. I have them selecting Eric Stahl. Eric Stahl, I think, has the most points up until this date. April 19th, 2021, when we're recording this. I think he has the most points out of this draft. 1,032, 440 games. 440 goals, 1,200 plus games. Originally selected second overall, so drops down 1. Eric Stahl. Being a Leaf fan, I hated Eric Stahl. Eric Stahl was a Leaf killer. Still is a Leaf killer. If we play Montreal in the playoffs this upcoming year, Eric Stahl is going to score an overtime winner in one of those games. He eats up Toronto. Eats up a lot of his competition and is one of the best centers in this draft. I have 2 centers on 1 and 2, obviously. If you're kind of following along, you kind of know who the last 2 picks for me are. He's a little under my 1 and 2 for me, but it's so close. It's so close. I between the guy I have at first and second, Stahl and Fleury, I was going back and forth on who was going to take 1.
Mm-hmm. That's a tough choice. Yeah, I have 2 centers left. And this was an incredibly tough choice for me because I was crying making this decision. And you're going to hate me for it.
Don't do it.
Yeah, third, I have Patrice Bergeron going to Florida Panthers. I know. I'm sorry, Ryan.
Yikes.
I know. But I will justify it with my later picks. Okay. I promise. Because I guess I get to say my second one after, which,
yeah. You had to get to your...
I love Bergeron. Right, I hate Boston, but I love Bergeron. I think he has he's 4th or 5th in career plus minus for active players right now. It's obviously you don't want to use that as a crazy metric, but when you're that high up for active players, it kind of does mean something that your whole career you're a defensive phenom, and he is. He's been an incredible center his whole career, and there's a reason why he's been awarded for it. More. I think he's won more individual awards than anybody else from you know,
Yes.
2003. Like it's a tough one to like measure, but comment down below if anybody else has prove me wrong or something. But like he's an incredible two-way forward. But, sometimes the offense isn't there, and that's part of the reason why I don't want to I haven't don't have him in the top two. Uh, it's really hard not to pick him in the top two. I'm sitting here like I can like feel you mad at me right now, even though I can't see you. Sitting here like, this son of a. But and it definitely would have been a great pick for Florida, who was crap for decades until like this season. So and yeah, which means that two, I have Eric Stahl.
Yep. Carolina keeping Eric Stahl
Keeping
here.
Eric Stahl. This is a redraft. There's ranking players, and then there's redrafting players, and they picked Stahl, and it was the right pick because they won a cup, right?
Yep.
He won like immediately, came out and did it, and like if that's not what the draft is for, to pick a player who turns your team around, the second pick, and you just come out and have it, and that's I think that like it was like situationally the correct pick on top of just I would also pick him second because I think that there's a layer of offense here that is just unprecedented in this entire draft. I know Corey Perry scored 50 goals, but Eric Stahl's been such a consistent scorer. Even when he hasn't been good, he's been like a good player, like even defensively. He's adapted his game throughout his career to be. He played for Buffalo, and he actually stood out and was like of value. And that's hard to do when you're when you're on a team that loses 18 games in a row and people look at you and they're like, "Hey, that guy's not that bad." That stands out. Like it's I've and to have accepted that position to even go to Buffalo in the first place takes incredible courage. And like the leadership's there. He was a captain for Carolina, right?
Yep.
For while he was there, and he kind of like seemingly like disappeared off the radar and then reappeared again. But I've always loved him, and I hated him in the first half of his career too. He's a killer for a lot of teams. It wasn't just Toronto. He fucked up every single team he faced, and you know Bergeron's a great two-way forward, but Stahl was just such a force, and that he was at that bona fide number one, while Bergeron's kind of had to fight for a two-way role to earn that number one. I think it's a very different kind of player, and that's why I'm going to put Stahl ahead of him at number two.
Yeah, for me, I guess everyone could guess now. I have Ryan Getzlaff at 2. Ryan Getzlaff, I have just ahead of Eric Stahl. I don't know really why. I can't really quantify it specifically. I just like Getzlaff's game a little more than I liked Eric Stahl's. Getzlaff is, I guess he's a play. Maybe I like playmakers a little more, with a little extra, toughness to him. Uh, Getzlaff will dangle around you. He'll make a sweet move and then he'll punch you in the face. Getzlaff is an absolute menace out there. He's one of the best, if not the best, playmaker in this draft. Um, Obviously, a leader in Anaheim for a long time, and I think replacing Getzlaff and Stahl is kind of an even trade here. If you're Carolina, if you're talking about winning cups, Getzlaff did the same thing. I'm pretty sure he won a cup right away with Anaheim too, didn't he? So,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a pretty even trade here. And I buried the lead a little bit, I guess, but I'll scroll up to my number one. I have Patrice Bergeron, and I guess you will. Do you announce your number one too? We'll talk about our number ones.
Oh, you know what? I want to touch on that Stahl and Getzlaff for the playoffs. I really did think about that the cup they won, and I figured that Stahl was a little bit more integral to that cup win
Oh yeah.
than Getzlaff was at the time. That was my justification at the time. And yeah, my number one here's is Patrice Bergeron. Mine, sticking to it, Marc-Andre Fleury.
I really like that pick, but I couldn't not pick Patrice Bergeron, dude. But for
Hmm.
me, is the probably, and this might be a hot take, but I think he's the best two-way player to ever play the game. In the sense of defensive first forward that will also score you goals, will also put up points, that is also a leader, that also kills penalties, that is the power play guy. He's everything. Patrice Bergeron is the most complete player in this draft to me by far, and I don't think it was ever a situation where I didn't pick him first. I thought about Fleury a little bit, thought about Stahl, but to me, there's no universe where I didn't pick Patrice Bergeron, especially on uh, Pittsburgh because it's Pittsburgh.
Hmm.
This was the first of many first overall picks in a few years, or top two picks for Pittsburgh. Obviously, they picked Crosby and Malkin a couple years later, um, and have had huge success with that. But could you imagine Bergeron and Crosby on an NHL team together for like the majority of their careers? It'd be
Hmm.
insane.
I
And
don't want
obviously,
to
we can
imagine.
look back and say that hindsight or whatever, they wouldn't have known this in 2003. But
Hmm.
still, um, yeah, he's underrated for his offense. I think Bergeron is.
Hmm.
He scored 900 points in his career. He's gonna hit 1,000 by the time he's done, unless he retires at the end of this year. But he's gonna probably hit 1,000 by the time he's done. And from the second round, 45th overall, to for me for first is a huge jump.
I really like Bergeron at first. It's tough picking the top three. I had to stick with Marc-Andre Fleury. It's a redraft, not just a ranking. If I were ranking, I might consider Patrice Bergeron with you. I wouldn't say he's the best forward defensively. I think there are, forwards who aren't as good overall who might be better defensively, but
Yeah,
of the defensive forwards, there is none better than Patrice Bergeron. Yeah, I
yeah,
might rank him number one, but in a redraft scenario, I see Marc-Andre Fleury going to Pittsburgh, number one. That's a franchise goaltender you're getting. And even in his rookie season, I think he played what, like 20 games or something. He was like kind of a backup. He was as an 18-year-old, there were like signs, like 895 something save percentage, 894 something, on a shitty Pittsburgh team. He showed signs of brilliance right out of the gate as a goaltender, and that's just unheard of. And it's in those 20 games you're looking at him play, and you're like, we have our goaltender who's gonna win us these cups. We can rely on him to win those cups. And I agree that there was a seeming like a drop in his game, in those the mid 2010s. He kind of got replaced by Matt Murray, but I think part of that is a kind of like a stigma towards older players. I think he was kind of forced out of his role as Pittsburgh, and people like kind of counting him out. Oh, he's getting old. He'll just retire, going to Vegas. How good can he be? He'll just be a backup to Leonard. And he's like, no, like I'm actually still the best. You know, I'm not a slouch. Like he's went to an expansion team that was supposed to do crap, and he played amazing, and he's still stealing a starting role on one of the best teams in the league. And that's tough to do as a goaltender for years. And I don't really consider that 2010s a drop off to be, as much of a drop off as much as a like revamp in his game. And as a lot of goaltenders thrive in their 30s, and he's having a new 30s, goalie, age, and I think it's incredible. And for Pittsburgh to pick anybody else, I think they'd be crazy.
yeah. Well, that's it. That's
That's it. Those
each
are
of
our thoughts.
our 15 picks in 2003 draft, one of the deepest drafts ever. Uh, Other than maybe there's some debate still early on, but 2015 is looking really good too.
Hmm. Yeah,
And
can't wait
obviously,
to do that one.
yeah, I can't wait to that one. We're gonna do. I think we're gonna go all up until maybe 2017. Some of them are too early to do. Obviously, like we
Mhm.
can't just redraft 2020. Like it is way too
Hoping
early. No one's
Niemela
played
should be
yet.
in the first round.
If you want to see us draft 2020 before it actually happened, what our predictions were, that's well, I'll link that down below. But we're gonna go through all these drafts and argue about who's gonna be first. I doubt this is the last time we disagree on who was picked
Hmm.
first overall. Uh, Maybe obviously there's a few obvious ones, but
I mean,
uh,
2005. I don't know, man.
yeah, I don't know about 2005.
Uh,
Certain player was picked then. We pick him second.
mhm.
Let
Bobby
us
Bryant.
Bobby Ryan, first overall, baby. Let us know who you have picked first overall in 2003, and leave a like on the video, like I said before, and subscribe for more dope hockey content coming to the channel. And do you have anything to say, Alex?
Let us know down below what year we should do next. You know, we don't have to do it chronologically. We can jump around to 2007, 2012, 2009, 1999, you know, whatever
Yeah, you want us to go
works, you know.
earlier?
If
We can do
anybody's,
that too.
yeah, if you guys want to hear us talk shit about, you know, a certain draft, let us know and we'll do that one instead. But, you know, there's no otherwise, yeah, thanks for watching and we'll see you next time.